Just because your API works doesn't mean it's ready for the real world. In this video, we'll take our Sequelize and Express project to the next level by adding proper validation and centralized error handling. You'll learn how to prevent bad data from entering your database, return meaningful error messages, and gracefully handle issues like validation failures, connection errors, and SQL mistakes. I am in Sequelize Express project. Let's open API test.http file. Earlier, we created a REST API to create, read, update, and delete a user. In other words, we implemented full CRUD on a user model. If you would like to learn how we did it, please check out this video. When creating a user, we trusted the API consumer to send us the correct data, in our case name and email. However, in real life this won't be the case. We always need to be sure we validate the input. Input validation starts when designing a model. Let's go to user.ts file that contains the user model. If we think about the name field, we want it to exist on all the users. So, it should be required. It also has to have certain number of characters. We want the name to have at least one character, but it shouldn't be super long. One reason to avoid making the name too long, aside from it being hard to say, is that the database field for the name has a character limit. In our case, MySQL database field that was created by Sequelize for the name is variable character or varchar and has a limit of 255 characters. One of the great things about Sequelize is that it allows you to add validations to its models. According to sequelize-typescript documentation, validation options can be set through the @column annotation, but if you prefer, you can use separate decorators for validation instead. For the full list of validations, please check out Sequelize documentation. Let's add validations to the name column. We will add allow null decorator false. This will prevent inserting user records without the name. In the @column annotation, let's put an object with validate property. Inside this property we will specify that the length of the name should be from 1 character to 100. Now let's talk about email field. We already agreed that this field should be unique, in case we want to authenticate users in the future. It is also a good idea to not allow email to be null. Finally, email value should have email format. To enforce that, let's add allow null false and as email decorators to the email property. Finally, let's not forget to import both allow null and as email decorators from sequelize-typescript. Adding validations to the models is only half of the job. Another half is to handle errors that validations trigger. Let's go to user routes and user.ts file. We can see that the code for post and put requests does have error handling via try-catch blocks. We could use the catch blocks to handle validation errors as well. However, it may not be very scalable if an API has a lot of models and a lot of validations. A better way is to centrally handle validation errors, or any errors, for that matter. Express Framework has a built-in error handler. If we don't do any try-catch and if an error is thrown, the app won't crash. Let's remove try-catch blocks from user routes file. Now, the responses from the Express server will contain error stack and they won't be in JSON format. We can create our own error handling middleware in addition to Express's default error handler. But before we do that, if you are learning something new, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. In the src middleware folder, let's create errorhandler.ts file. In this file we will import request, response, and next function from Express. We will also import getErrorMessage function from utils file. This function doesn't exist yet. We will create it in a second. GetErrorMessage function will allow us to safely get a message from an error. In JavaScript, anything can be thrown as an error, therefore an error in TypeScript is typed as unknown. Before we can get a message from an error, we will need to have a logic to check the actual type of the error. GetErrorMessage function will do just that. So, let's quickly create it in the utils.ts file in the src folder. We will export function getErrorMessage. Inside this function we will check if an error is an instance of error. If so, we can safely access the message property and return its value. If an error is some other object and has a message property, we can do the same thing. If an error is a string, we can just return it. Finally, if nothing matches, we can return a message an error occurred. Now let's go back to the error handler middleware file and do the remaining import of validation error type from Sequelize. Next we will export default error handler function. Express is smart enough to pass to it an error, which is type of unknown, request, response, and next function. First we need to check if response headers are sent. For example, if we are doing an asynchronous action that takes a bit of time, the response may be already sent back. We can't send another response on top of already sent one. Express won't let us do that and will complain. In the case when the headers are already sent, I prefer to pass an error to the Express's default error handler using next function, because the default error handler does a good job at logging the error stack. Next, we will check if an error is an instance of the validation error. If it is, we will send a response with 422 status. This HTTP status code means unprocessable entity and is often used to return validation errors. We will send back to the API consumer an error object containing a general error message and error details. It is a good idea to always send an error back to the user in the standard format no matter what the type of error it is. Finally, we will add a default error response in case the error of some other type. The response status code is 500. The difference between 400s and 500s error status codes is that 400 status codes mean that something is wrong with a client request. 422 response status code is a good example of it. 500's codes mean that the error happened on the server. In our case, this is a default error response, so we don't exactly know what may have caused it. My approach is to use 500 response status. Once again, we will return an error object with an error message that we can safely access now with getErrorMessage function. At the end of the error handler, I also like to call next function on the error to pass it to the Express error handler. As I mentioned earlier, the default error handler does a pretty good job in logging the errors. Since at this point some errors can be unexpected, I would like to have more information about them. The last step is to add the error handler middleware to the Express server. Let's go to the server.ts file in the src folder. The error handler should be the last thing you add to the Express server. Right before returning the Express app, we will call use method on the app and pass it the error handler. We are all set. Let's test our code. After starting the dev server, go to the API test.http file and try making create user request without name field or with name as an empty string. We will get validation errors. Now let's remove @ symbol from the email address. We get validation error once again. So, the code is working. Besides the validation error, Sequelize has other types of errors that can be used to give the consumer of the API a better error experience. One that I like to use is the connection error. This error is thrown when the database is unavailable. I like to use it to provide a more concise responses and hide some application information that may be exposed when this error happens. Let's add it to the error handler. In the if statement, we will check if the error is an instance of connection error. If it is, we will respond back with the status 503 and with the error object containing the message and error details. Let's quickly test it. I'm going to stop the database with the command docker compose down and make a request to get user by ID. We get a 503 response that the application couldn't connect to the database. Another Sequelize error that I like to use is the database error. This error is triggered when the database engine returns an error that is not related to model validation, but rather to SQL-level issues, such as syntax errors, invalid columns, and constraint violations. For example, an API consumer can request to filter results by column that doesn't exist. In the error handler file, let's add another if statement that checks if the error is an instance of the database error. If it is, we will respond with status 500 and error message and error details. In the add user repository file, let's update getUsers method to return a non-existing attributes by adding an array with a non-existent column to the attributes property of the user's model findAll method. Let's bring our database back up with docker compose up-d command. Finally, let's make a request to getUsers endpoint. As you can see, we got a database error with a message about the unknown column in the field list. The code is working. Let's go back to the add user repository file and remove the code we used to trigger the database error. Now your API is smarter and more resilient with proper validation and centralized error handling. But there's still one important piece missing. How do you keep your database structure in sync across environments and teams? That's where Sequelize migrations come in. In the next video, I'll show you how to set up and run migrations step by step. Click here to watch it and take your Sequelize setup to the next level.